To illustrate how God has been with us in the pandemic, I have 4 stories to share from people within or connected to our congregations. The first is from Kay Musard, who writes, I went with some others recently to Winchester Cathedral and encountered God in so many ways. When the guide was telling about a Star of David that features in one stained glass window and how David had written many of the Psalms, our experience of home group discussions on the Psalms became relevant, and we were able to offer detailed alternative comments and to make connections. We then saw the tomb of Henry de Blois and linked that to our latest read in the church book group. We saw the memorial to William Walker, the deep-sea diver who saved the building from collapse by spending 6 years working underwater among the foundations. At our next home group, Richard reminded us that Walker's tomb is in Beckenham Cemetery and that he died in 1918 during another pandemic, that of Spanish flu. Everything came together. Everything seemed to happen for a reason. The cathedral and its history reminded us that people survived troubled times and helped us to recognise that our troubled times of COVID will doubtlessly shape our future. That day, our encounter with God made our tiny place in God's great plan of much more significance, and the future seemed to be all the more hopeful. Our second story is from Mary Saunders. Now, when Mary called me to say her husband, Michael, had died and to ask if I could take the funeral, she was thinking we'd have it at Beckenham Crematorium. But she really wanted to make it more personal, which is a bit difficult at the crematorium. After further discussions over a number of days, we agreed that we'd do it at St Mary's for a number of reasons. Firstly, Mary herself had helped in the past at Messy Church, and so she felt very much at home in that building, even though she's a member of St Francis. Secondly, their daughter Daniela wanted to speak. Now, Daniela lives in Australia, so we needed to find a way of linking across to the other side of the world. And thirdly, Mary herself was from the US, and so there were other family members who'd like to be able to watch on a live stream, which, as you know, is possible from St Mary's. Now, it wasn't until the day itself that I was able to see how God was so clearly involved in this decision. It was Norman, Michael's brother, who provided the final piece of the jigsaw. When he came into the church, he told me how he and Michael had been scouts at St Mary's. They grew up in Pickhurst Rise, and that day he felt he'd really come home. Later in the day, it was Norman, at 92 years of age, who asked everyone at the reception after the service to explain how they each knew Michael, and found himself learning new things about his brother as a result. God so clearly with us. Our next story is from Terry Leggett. Some of you will know Terry from when he visited St Francis Church on a Friday and Saturday, his first escorted visits out of prison for many years. Now, in December 2019, Terry was moved to Wotton Prison near Nottingham, and he's kept touch with a number of people from the church since. We heard in March that he was in hospital with COVID, and he went rapidly downhill, being on a ventilator and unable to speak. Prayers were sent round the prayer chain. An update from Terry's friend Adrian in April brought no good news. Terry had been in a coma then for 6 weeks. We expected the worst, but kept praying. I now have a letter dated the 19th of May from Terry. It was the first he wrote after coming out of the coma. something that none of the doctors, nurses, or prison staff expected to happen. Terry's letter states that without those prayers, he doesn't believe he'd be alive today. A miraculous healing and real proof of God with us. Our final story is from Jane Smith. Now, some of you will know Jane, who's been shielding for most of the past year and who lives on her own. She writes, "A few months ago, I started a gratitude journal where I wrote down at least 3 things that I was grateful for that had taken place at the end of every day. Sometimes it was just something simple, like I'd appreciated the beautiful sky from my window or heard the call of a tawny owl one evening. Another time it might be giving thanks for a friend who emailed me or for my groceries being safely delivered. My journal is full up now, but I often look through it and remind myself of all the different things for which I am grateful. I haven't started another gratitude journal, but I'm still in the habit of looking back over each day and remembering how I can be grateful." Jane also wrote a poem called Gratitude, which may help anyone wanting to be reminded of how God is always with us. Grateful for the dawn as the birds start to sing. Grateful for the sun, the warmth that it brings. Grateful for the trees coming into leaf. Grateful for the flowers, butterflies and bees. Grateful for my family, although we are apart. Grateful we are one in spirit and in heart. Grateful for my friends for keeping in touch. Grateful for my godson, whom I love very much. Grateful for my therapist, giving me her time. Grateful for all those who are patient and kind. Grateful for the groceries delivered to my door. Grateful for the workers in the supermarket store. Grateful for the sunset, the colours in the sky. Grateful for the moon, shining pure and white. Grateful for my bed, where I can sleep and rest. Grateful that I am well and truly blessed." So you see, so many things to be grateful for over the past 18 months, but perhaps the most important is that God was with us and still is.